How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to part 6 of how to build a shed slash playhouse. Today we're going to be installing some shingles. We're going to be using specifically Gaf Timberline architectural roofing shingles that are going to match the house. So looking at some of the starting materials we're going to be using, you can see here in my hands right now, this is called a starter strip. Basically, the black line that's on the very top is what's going to be connecting to the bottom portion of your shingles, and it's going to connect to it so that they don't lift up. You can see the design on the actual shingles themselves. It's a beautiful design that they have. It does look very nice once it's up there. I'm also going to give you a quick run around on top of the roof of my house to show you what it looks like on a larger structure as well later on in the video. So again, this is what we're going to be using. These are the Gaf Timberline roofing shingles that we're going to be putting up on the shed. So if this is your first time seeing shingles, the black strips that are on the bottom, they're very shiny portions. Those are what's going to be activated by the sun. Once the sun beams on those shiny black strips, it becomes an adhesive, a very, very good glue, if you would say. That will activate by the sun, and it becomes rock hard to a point where you can't even lift these. Now, these are our 4-tab shingles. You can use this as well if you want to roof your house. You want to shingle the house with this type of material. That's perfectly fine as well. The only reason I actually have the 4-tab shingles is because I'm going to be using this for the ridge cap. The ridge cap is the top point of your actual structure. So where the 2 pieces of plywood on the very top meet to make that point, this material right here is what's going to go over that to make the design look complete. So measuring the shingles that we're going to be using, they come out, the width is right around 13¼ inches. That measurement is going to play a role in the actual first strip, the first starter strip that we're going to be using on the bottom ledge of our roof. So keep that measurement in mind. Measure whatever shingles you are using, but we have 13¼ inches on this one. Getting your starter strip started, you got to measure the width of the actual starter strip. So the width of this starter strip is 6 5/8. You want to have at least a 1/4 inch overhang. I mean, you can go whatever overhang you want on shingles. I wouldn't go obviously a foot, but a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, somewhere around there, you'll be perfectly fine. So I want to go 1/4 inch overhang, so I'm going to adjust my measurement from 6 5/8 to 6 3/8. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure from the bottom portion of the actual drip edge to 6 3/8. I'm going to mark a line. I'm going to do the same thing for the opposite side, and I'm going to snap a chalk line so that I have a perfect line, perfectly even line from the bottom of the drip edge to 6 3/8 on one side, and the bottom of the drip edge to 6 3/8 on the other side. So once you have your measurement on both sides where the 6 3/8 meet, go ahead and, just because of the fact that you're working on your own and you want a tight chalk line, go ahead and put a little nail in the roofing paper portion, and that's going to be used as your extra hand. So when you're putting your actual chalk line, the head of it could attach to that nail right at 6 3/8. Then you could walk yourself over to the opposite side and snap your line with the ease of having that nail in there as if somebody's actually holding it for you. And just a quick example of what I'm explaining with the nail, do not nail this fully into the material, but enough so that when you actually attach the chalk line, it does not pull from the material when you're pulling the chalk line. And you can see the head of the actual chalk line itself, the metal portion, fits right over the nail, and once you pull it to the other side, it should stay in, as long as you put it in good enough. And moving over to the opposite side, once you have that chalk line, the head of it in, go ahead and move it over to your 6 3/8 measurement on the opposite side and snap a line. And I hope I don't get anybody dizzy when moving this camera in this manner, but that way you guys can see exactly what it's going to look like with the chalk line down the line. Here you go. So 6 3/8 from the bottom of the drip edge all the way up is now on this chalk line from one side all the way to the other. And you're going to see right here, the starter strip is going to go flush with that chalk line as well as a 1/4 inch overhang on the drip edge. And make sure you do that for the left side as well. So this starter strip right here, make sure you put the tar portion on the bottom. Some people put it up on top, but you want it on the bottom. That way the shingles on top of it don't lift from the wind on the very corner. There's no point in putting them on the top. Make sure they go on towards the bottom portion. So go ahead and start cutting out your starter strips. They just cut right in half. You can use a razor blade for this, or you can bend it a couple ways back and forth and it'll just come apart themselves. So either way, however you do it, I just want to give you show you an idea of what it looks like to cut these with a razor blade or a utility knife, whatever you want to call it. Just make sure that you have a good amount of blades or a solid blade that's going to last you the entire project. So again, you're going to be running through about 2 to 3 blades depending on the size of roof you're doing, but this roof right here is going to cost me about 3 blades. So I want to first apologize for the actual tripod of this camera being in these shots. You know, this is the best I can do with the, especially with the pitch of this roof. You're going to see this camera tripod probably throughout the video. So to give you an idea of how to nail these in, you are going to want to go ahead and line your shingle up to where it's going to begin. Once you have that lined up, you're going to nail in one nail on the corner portion right above that tar line. And the reason it's going right above that tar line is because the adhesive portion is what's going to connect to the actual shingles itself. So you want to start on one side, move your way to the opposite side. Do not work your way left to right. Work your way corner to corner and then in the middle. And that way you know that your shingle is not going to move on you, because once you nail in just 2 nails into the shingle and you mess up on it, you're going to have to take it off to do it again. So do it right the first time and just nail it in from one corner, nail in the other corner, and then work your way in the middle. So your starter strip is the most important portion of the roofing when it comes to the shingles. The reason being is once you have this leveled off and everything's straight, the remainder of the shingles are just going to fall into place after that. Just get this one leveled off and all the remainders should be leveled off. And once you have your first one down, hopefully as long as the edges of the remainder of your starter strips are not damaged in any way, they should fit snug against the right portion, the left portion of the actual starter strips. So go ahead and work your way down the line. You can see that once you butt them up together, nail them off, make sure they have that right on that chalk line. That's where you're going off of, and go ahead and start nailing them off. Again, just work your way down the line, and that should be your starter strip. And then we'll go on the edges right now in a bit. And don't forget your corner to corner, and then work your way in the middle. Don't work left to right. So if you're wondering what size nails to use for this, for the roofing nails, it all depends on what you're going to do on the inside of this roof, on the ceiling portion once you're done. If you're going to cover it up, it doesn't matter to the length of the actual nails. If you're not going to cover up the ceiling, then you want to make sure that you have no nails exposed, so you're going to have to go with a shorter nail. Even though they're a little harder working with your fingers, you're still going to have to go with a shorter nail. That way you don't have all these nails sticking out on the ceiling portion when you're looking up. Now they do have nail guns for this type of project as well, you know, for roofing nails. But the small project I'm doing here, I'm just going to use a hammer and nails. It's very enjoyable actually doing it with a hammer and nail for this project, knowing that this is the actual ending of your structure rather than the door that we have to put in also. But this is actually what's making the actual structure look great from above. I want to make sure I'm doing this all by hand. Now once you get to the edge where you're going to have to make a cut, very simple. You could do it 2 ways. One way, you get your speed square here and make a line with a pencil, and right where you're going to have to make the cut. So make sure you have that 1/4 inch overhang on the right side of the shed as well, over the drip edge, and make your line with a pencil mark. You can do it that way, or you can do it with just a razor blade without having to make a marking with the actual pencil. So whichever way you decide, it's only your preference. So I'm also doing some starter strips on the edges where it's going up to the peak of the actual roof. So pay attention to this portion. You can see the black tar line. Now everything is leveled on the bottom starter strip itself. However, if you notice the black tar line, it is uneven from the one before it. Do not measure these off of your black tar lines. They are not all the same. Measure from your chalk line or whatever measurements you made, but do not measure from those black tar lines. Do not think that those black tar lines are going to meet together and you're going to have an even starter strip. So again, perfect example. I'm glad that actually showed up on the video. So getting started on the shingling process, it doesn't matter whether or not you are starting on the left side of the roof or you're starting on the right side of the roof. I prefer starting on the left. I work my way left to right on everything. So I prefer left to right. So each shingle, each strip that you're going to be putting up above the previous one is going to be an offset of 6 inches, 5.5 to 6 inches. So if you imagine this way, you're going to be cutting 6 inches off each one that you are going up. And that's going to start your starter strip for the beginning process of actual shingling portion. So as you're moving up, you're going to be making your cuts. Full sheet, 6 inches off, 12 inches off, 18 inches off, all the way up until you can no longer take 6 inches off. Now it's very important to remember this part. You have white lines already made on these shingles. If you can see these white lines here, the bottom portion of the next shingle is going to be lined up directly on those white lines. That black portion that's on top of those white lines is where you're going to be nailing the actual roofing nails into it. So here is our every 6 inches off from the bottom to the top, and all you're going to do is cut those to make everything flushed on the left side. This is exactly what you want when you're placing the first portion of your shingles up. Every 5.5 to 6 inches off is what you want, and from there it's just going to be full sheets, left to right, left to right, left to right, until you get to the end, obviously, to where you're going to have to make your cuts. But you want to make sure that you start it this way. That way everything is offset and everything flows over each other evenly. Remember, the white lines, the bottom portion of those shingles need to be on top or against or flushed, pretty much preferably flushed with those white lines. So once you have this portion up on the roof, your starting portion, you can start moving with full sheets. You want to remember that the white lines, again, the bottom portion of the shingle that goes on top of each one is going to be flushed with that white line. It is a chalk line basically, but it's already pre-made into your shingle. So again, left to right, full sheets until you get to a point to where you actually have to make a cut on the far end. And don't forget to nail against the actual black portion, the non-shiny portion that's on top of the shingle above the white line. That's where you're going to be nailing your nails in. On the back side of the shingles, you're going to see again, shiny black tarish type of material. What that is used for is when, again, the sun is going to activate that into an adhesive. Once the sun hits this, it's going to be rock hard and you're not going to be able to lift this up. So again, be careful with this when you're working on the roof. It gets very sticky. And before getting started on the actual project itself, once you actually go up to the roof, make sure you have a sufficient amount of razors with you. I'm just going to go ahead and grab a pack right now from my other shed, and I'm going to keep them close by, whether they're not in my tool pouch or just close by, so I know that I'm not going to be going back and forth for them. It really doesn't matter to what type of razor you're going to be using, what kind of blade, as long as it works for you. Alright, now we brought our shingles up that we cut. We brought them up to the roof, and we're going to go ahead and get started with this. So your first piece that you're going to be placing on should be a full sheet. Should be a full piece of shingle. So get it lined up. We already have the 1/4 inch overhang on the starter strip underneath this. Once you have that first piece lined up and everything's flushed, go ahead and start nailing this in. Remember, you're nailing into that black portion that's on top of the white line. Doesn't matter if you're starting on the left side or the right side, as long as you start on the edges, edge to edge, and then work your way in the middle. Once you're satisfied with the way that the first one went on, that everything's flushed, make sure that it's flushed on the bottom with the starter strip. Make sure it's flushed on the left side with the starter strip. Once everything is flushed and you're happy and satisfied with the way it looks, go ahead and move your way up with the next shingle that you cut the 6 inches off of. So you're going to make what looks as it's a staircase. So that's what it's going to look like, but that's what you want when you're starting this. So don't forget to nail into the black lines, as well as making sure that the bottom shingle portion of the next one going up is flushed with that white line. And just move your way up from this point. So this is exactly what you want for each shingle going above, overlapping the one on the below it. This is exactly what you want it to look like. You want it to be lined up with that line. You want it to be flushed on the left side, and everything's going to look like a perfect design once it's done. And again, I know I'm repeating myself a lot, but make sure you do the edges first and then work your way in the middle. Very important to do that so you don't mess up and have to rip this off and even damage the one below it. And as you can see here, I'm just working my way up from the bottom to the top. For all the pieces that I cut, it's just working your way up, making sure that everything's leveled off with the line, making sure that everything's flushed on the left side, working your way up until that last piece that you cut. And once you have all those pieces up, go ahead and go back to the bottom portion, and you're going to start with your full sheets. Just make sure that everything is flushed. Try to get it as butted up against the first one as possible, or the one to the left of it, and make sure that it's just even with the bottom portion of that first starter strip you put up there. So that's what's going to make it even. Whether or not this shingle has a little curve to the left side of it or right side of it, don't focus on the left or right side of it. Some of them aren't cut the exact, perfectly even or perfectly leveled or perfectly straight. What you want to do is make sure that you are butted up with the bottom portion of that starter strip. That's what's going to make it straight. Alright, so the process that we're going to be working here, it doesn't matter if you're going lane by lane, row by row. Whatever process you feel is more comfortable for you, just work that angle. So what I'm going to do here is I'm standing in one spot. So I have my shingle right in front of me. I don't have to keep moving my ladder. If I was working on a scaffold, it might be a little bit different, but I don't want to keep moving my ladder right now to each shingle left to right, then have to move it again left to right. You're in this one area, throw your other piece of shingle on top of that. As long as underneath that is hitting all shingle and no roofing paper, you're good to put the next one above it. And by not hitting roofing paper, I'm referring to the left and right sides, not the top portion, because the top portion, obviously, you're hitting roofing paper. Make sure you're using good common sense. Don't be reaching too far from your ladder's point or a scaffold. Once you reach a certain limit, get up onto the roof. And it began to rain on me. The wind was picking up pretty bad, and when you're on a roof and the wind is pushing, it sucks. But anyways, my wife told me that I needed to come inside because she was afraid I was going to fall off the roof. So I went back up the ladder and continued my work. So this is the process so far. We still have a little bit to go. Just use caution when dealing with rain. Okay, so this is where I'm at so far. I have placed all the shingles onto all the rows where we made the initial cuts with the 6 inches off. Now we are up to one full piece on the very top portion, right before it meets the ridge line. So I know that I'm going to have one solid sheet going from left to right, and then I'm going to have to offset one more from 6 inches with a cut. And that will be above the full sheet, which should meet the ridge line. I'm hoping that you can see this on the video. You can see the bottom portion of each sheet of shingles, how they meet with the white line. And if you look up, you'll see all the white lines flushed with the bottom portion of each shingle going up. So moving our way up to the second to the last row, if you would, right before the ridge line on this side of the shed of the roof, you can see that this is going to be one full sheet now, since we are now restarting basically the process for the 6-inch cuts. So this is going to be one full sheet, and right above that one, as you can see, it still needs more room for the ridge line. To meet the ridge line, you're going to have to make that 6-inch cut, as you can see right here. This portion that I'm showing you with my finger here has to be cut, and the ridge line is going to be exposed just a little bit. So you want to get it as close as possible to that ridge line, but don't give too much of a gap, but enough that you're not going to have a bow with the shingles if you put them on overlapping. So once you have that portion cut out, go ahead and place that on. And you're going to move your way the same exact way as you were initially. Just move down the line, row by row or overlapping each other, however you feel it necessary to do. So again, this is not a hard process, and you can see now I'm restarting one full sheet on the bottom and the 6-inch cut above that, which meets the ridge line. So this is a beautiful design, beautiful color, and I'm matching the roof of my house. Unfortunately, the only people that will really see this roof are going to be the ones flying over it. And we have completed one side of this roof. As you can see, everything is leveled and even. There's no sloping of any of these shingles. Everything was lined up, and it was all due to that first starter strip that we placed in the very beginning, and then ran off every shingle above that to all the white pre-made lines in each shingle. If you do it that way, you're going to have a straight, flushed, and even looking roof. That is your goal, and that's what you want. Now to get started on the opposite side, same exact process. This is your first pattern that you're going to want to place on initially. Alright, so once you have your first portion cut out, ready to go, just walk them up to the roof and get started on the second half of your roof, the opposite side. My recommendation is to invest in a pair of knee pads. The grains of these shingles do dig into your skin, and you don't want to work uncomfortably. You want to be as comfortable as possible when doing this, so please invest in some sort of knee pads. And as you can see here, I already have my starter strips placed. I have my first row going, and I'm ready to start shingling the rest. And as you can see here, it's the same exact as we started on the first side. We have our pattern laid out, all our 6-inch cuts, the offsets are made, they're placed on, and we're ready to go. So as you can see, I went ahead and placed all my shingles above except for where it's going to meet the ridge line again. So I didn't feel it necessary to have to show you how to do all this again. Just follow the same steps as before. But now getting to this ridge line, you want to make sure that the piece that you're placing on right now, you can see this overlap. You don't want it overlapping that way. You want to make sure you cut it the same exact way as you did on the first side. So make your cut, make it as close to the ridge line as possible, and go ahead and nail this portion in. So this is what your roof should look like at this point. We are ready to put the ridge caps on. I just wanted to give a quick overview of what this looks like on both sides. You can see that everything is straight and leveled off and even. Everything had to do with those starter strips. That's why it's very important. Those starter strips need to be placed perfectly for you to have this look. Alright, and moving over to the ridge cap material, you can see we have our 4 tab shingles here that we're going to be using. It's the same exact color as the roof. Make sure you get the same color or whatever design you want. If you want to put a different color on there, it's your roof, it's your choice. All you have to do is, there's a little seam between these joints, and just move it left and right and pull it and they'll snap right off. Now when placing this material above on top for the ridge cap, you're going to want to make sure that you're going to make some angle cuts on each one. The reason being is, if you look at this, when they bend over, you're going to have the bottom one exposed unless you make those angle cuts. You do not want to have this bottom portion exposed on each and every ridge cap. That is going to look ugly. So you have got to make the angle cuts on these ridge caps. So if you're going with the same color as the roof, just make sure that you are using the correct side of the actual ridge cap. So in order to get these ridge caps straight and leveled, you're going to want to place one ridge cap at one corner and then place another ridge cap at the opposite side on the other corner, and we're going to make a chalk line. Once you make your chalk line from corner to corner of your ridge caps, that line is going to be followed by each and every ridge cap you're placing above. I'm hoping from the actual view you can see the chalk line on the corner portion of that end ridge cap. The chalk line is running directly to the other ridge cap at the front end. And all you need to do is make a chalk line on one side. You do not need to do it for both sides. One chalk line is sufficient enough for you to be able to follow that line with each and every ridge cap, all the way down the line until you get to the last one. Once you're at this point, once you have your chalk line laid out, go ahead and put it away. All that you'll need for the remainder of this project are the ridge caps, some nails, and your hammer. That is it. So go ahead and bring all your ridge caps up to the roof, and it's time to get started on this portion. As talked about before, this is what the angle cuts you want to have look like on each and every ridge cap that you're taking up there. Once you have a good amount cut out, go ahead and take it up to the roof. Just make sure you're carrying only what you can actually carry. Getting started on the ridge cap portions, you can see I have many cut out here. So what I like to do is color to color. I'm going to butt up the bottom of each ridge cap to the color of the previous ridge cap. The black tar portion is the adhesive that will activate once the sun hits it. When nailing this, I want to nail the most meat I possibly can get off these ridge caps. All you need is two, one on each side. However, there is nothing wrong with putting more. So as you can see here, I have one nail on each side of this ridge cap, right at that tar line. Just go ahead and continue down the line. Make sure that, well, what I like to do is color to color. Make sure that the actual ridge cap is overlapping those nails. And make sure that you're running that side where you made the chalk line against the ridge cap. That's what's going to make it straight. That's what's going to make it look even, and it's going to look like a great roofing project once you're complete, as long as you're doing everything leveled off. Chalk line is a must. So as you can see, I have all my ridge caps laid out. They're already nailed in, and I am moving up to the second to the last ridge cap. You can see that there's an overhang over the side of the roof. You want to make sure you make your adjustments, make the cut so that's flushed up against the edge of that roof. Once you have that cut and flushed with the edge of that roof, go ahead and nail that one in. At this point in the project, you should be pretty excited because all you have is one more piece of shingle to lay down and the whole entire structure is done. The whole entire roofing project is done. When getting to your last shingle, the last shingle is going to be cut to where it's flushed up against the edge of your roof, of the shingles that you laid down. So the last ridge cap, there is absolutely nothing that you can do when exposing those nails. So it's very important to be using galvanized nails for this entire project. I don't even know if they sell roofing nails that are not galvanized. They may, but I don't know if they do. But regardless, you're down to your last piece here. This last piece needs to be trimmed, flushed with that edging, the shingle edge that hangs off the roof. Once you have that piece cut out, go ahead and nail that in. You're going to have nails exposed, but that's just part of it. So as you can see here, here is your last ridge cap and the nails are exposed. There's only 2 nails on this ridge cap, and even though the black tar on the bottom is going to be that adhesive once the sun activates it, I still like to put 4 nails on the last ridge cap to give it that extra hold, to make sure that it's not going to go anywhere once that wind blows. If it catches it from the backside, there's nothing holding it on the bottom of that. So I want to make sure that I have 4 nails on my last ridge cap. And this roofing project is complete. This is what the top portion looks like. This is what the sidings look like. Ridge caps on, everything's flushed, everything's even, everything is leveled off. And it all had to do with the starter strips as well as the chalk line for the ridge cap. So this is what it looks like. I really hope that this helped you. If you have never seen or done any sort of shingling before, and especially with these architectural shingles, they're beautiful, you know, and this is what it should look like in the end. So give the sun some time to activate all that black tar on the bottom. Once it does activate, the adhesive is going to be rock hard, and it's going to be nearly impossible for that wind to lift it. So just a quick review underneath the bottom portion of the shingles, you can see the overhang that we have. You don't want to have this flushed up against the edge where the fascia is at, basically, of your shed, of your structure. You want to make sure that there's that overhang so that it helps the rain fall away from the structure. So on a larger structure, which is my house, you can see the type of shingles, which is the same as we installed on the shed. Walking around this, everything is the same. It's the same exact process. You would start the same starter strips with these with the shingles on the roof of your house, the same exact pattern with the 6-inch cuts. Everything is the same if you were doing a larger structure. The only difference with homes is sometimes you run into what's called a valley, which is where 2 pieces of plywood meet and there's like a down drop, almost like an angle. That's called a valley. So that's a little different, obviously, with the shingling, but it's still an easy process. That's going to require still a chalk line and some cuts in a different manner. But anyways, everything is the same on this roof as this house when it comes to the ridge caps and the shingles and the patterns that you're going to start with. Now, there are different types of material you can use for roofing any structure. Obviously, if you want the nice look, you're going to go with the actual shingles. If you want something done that's going to last years to come as well, you're going to go with a different material, such as like this felt type of material here. So this is my other shed that we built years ago, and instead of shingling it, we just lay this felt down. So there's different types of material you can use. This just rolls right on. You're going to have to use that adhesive on the bottom of it like we did with the Henry's adhesive as well. But it's also a simple project. So this roof was installed in the summer of 2015. The sun activated everything. As you can see here, you can't even lift these shingles. Here in Tucson, Arizona, the sun beams on everything. So this probably was activated within a day or 2, at my guess. Alright, and that completes our roofing project with shingling with the Gaf Timberline shingles. Thank you guys. Big thank you for sticking by if you watched the entire video. Hopefully this gives you some sort of insight on how to shingle if you've never done this before, or at least what the Timberline shingles look like. So please subscribe for more to come. Thanks again.